So now that we've all heard sort of the music of the Portuguese, which I can only pick little bits up of with the tiny bit of Spanish that I have, and the English, and we've had a bit of a chat about translation, I wonder if you want to bring your translator's perspective in and let us know a bit more about Two Lines, but also perhaps the particular challenges of bringing Brazilian Portuguese into English, or maybe just the Barbara.
Right. I can talk a little bit about the Two Lines. Well, I talk about the Granta first, so I'll read from both. I recently heard Margaret Jewel Costa speak, and she translated both for Granta and Passageways, and she's one of the most established translators from both Portuguese and Spanish, and she was talking about how Portuguese is more prone to these really long sentences that just keep going, no full stops. But I think that the Portuguese language really can hold, or maybe it's culturally, people are used to long sentences that you follow around all these convolutions. And I think in English, both in the States and in Britain, who knows? English is such a global language now, but I think that we're used to more clipped sentences and sentences that just get the point across faster. And so I talked with her a little bit after that event, and she said, she's translating José Saramago, she translates Essa de Queiroz, and she says she has, it's a fine balance between letting the Portuguese kind of take over English and let it, be a bit more expansive and flow, and sometimes, just going in and just maybe splicing a sentence here and there. One thing I thought about in translating for, I translated 3 pieces, is that translation, often it makes you, I did a lot more hand-wringing and worrying about the English and the registers in English than I did about the Portuguese. And Daniel Hahn has a great introduction in the Passageways where he talks about Gregory Rabassa, who translated 100 Years of Solitude, and people were saying, how are you going to do that? Are you sure your Spanish is good enough? He said, that's not the right question. The question is my English good enough? Because I think you have to think about a whole range of registers in English. And a particular challenge for Granta is that Granta is a British publication, and so I was translating in a more kind of neutral, but still inevitably American English. And so, one of the stories, Emilia's story, takes place between São Paulo and London. And so when it's all in Portuguese, it doesn't really matter. But all of a sudden I'm writing British characters, and I don't want it to sound like I'm doing dialect, or too forced. And so, I was asking, should I use bloke? Is that too weird? Guy. And I had a funny exchange with Lettuce Nights, which is Vanessa's story, where Granta, the editors, wrote to me and they said, can we change a few words just according to house style? To which I responded, trousers and biscuits are fine substitutions. So yeah, it's gotten me to look at English in a lot different kind of way, often second guessing if things sound natural in English. So I have a whole group of readers, some who are here who I've just sent lots of versions to, or just, I'll send a query, does this sound natural to you? Because I've lost my sense.
Well, it's an interesting thing because our editor is American but has lived a lot between the UK and the US. I'm American, our editorial assistant's American, and then our deputy editor is from Zimbabwe, and our publisher is Swedish. So, we sit here and have these struggles with, do we say, there was a story, I think, for the last issue, or the next issue, there's an SRO. There's somebody's writing about an SRO, and we were sitting there thinking, I'd say SRO, but what is it in the UK? And we actually kind of struggled to find the right word. Anyway, but it's a constant debate in the office, like, what do we use? We had a big trousers, pants conversation about an American author
Cookies,
recently.
Biscuits.
Yeah.
Right.
It's funny.
Right.
Which is why this edition is too good. It's good. Because when people start talking about specific words, there are people from letters. They're talking, this word is correct, saccurate, something like that. So I think this is really music to my ears.
Right, you get to really
Yeah.
geek out about
Talking
accuracy and
yeah.
register.
This word, and they
Yeah.
talk half an hour about
Yeah.
a word, so for me it's really music. I thought, oh my god,
It
this
is
is
a great
heaven.
choice.
This is heaven.
Can I ask you one more translation question before you
Sure.
read? I'm wondering. So, I think it was an event with Margot Joel Costa that we did. You were on the panel as well with Michelle Laub, who she translated, and the kind of, if I'm remembering correctly, it came up that translations need to be updated. That the original can always stay in the original, but that kind of every generation kind of needs its own translation of Amado. What are your thoughts on that? Is it just as the vernacular changes, or do you find that accurate?
It's something I've thought about a lot, and I don't think I don't think there's any one satisfying answer, but I agree that that translations should be updated from time to time, or over time. I think for a lot of different reasons. I mean, one, it's always something that's a little bit derivative from the original, although it should stand as a work of art on its own. But all kinds of different things change, not only, what sounds natural in whichever language, but I think attitudes toward entire literatures and languages. So I think with Brazilian literature, it's really exciting what's happening now, because I think in the past, it wasn't a literature that was as internationally admired as, say, Russian or French. And so I think that, this is my own theory, but I think that translators in the past took a lot of liberties. There are a lot of really bad translations of Brazilian works. And I think, it's exciting that New Directions just published and is continuing to publish a whole new series of translations of Clarice Lispector. So you can really see how very strange and magical she is. And 3 of the 5 translators involved in those have translations in Granta and in the Passageways. So I think that not only are these issues, publications, really great ways to know what's going on in Brazilian literature, they're also, a way of showing what voices are carrying it into English. One last thing I wanted to say just on that point is that I think it was also Gregory Rabassa. He has a knack for good good lines, quotable lines. But I think he was talking about Machado de Assis, the great 19th century Brazilian writer, and his classic Memórias Póstumas de Brás Cubas, which is literally the posthumous memoirs of Brás Cubas, which I think in the 40s or the 50s was translated as Epitaph of a Small Winner. Thinking that you had to explain the story. And so he was saying, that's like taking Madame Bovary and calling it, story about a provincial depressed housewife, and not just Madame Bovary or like Mrs. Bovary, and so I think that, so I think specifically with the case with Brazilian literature, you need updated translations because I think these translators, these are really great translations in these works, and people know Portuguese a lot better, are more familiar with both Portuguese, Brazilian culture, and I think are just respecting its literary value a lot more. So.
Cool. Yeah. So you're going to read the Barbara or the Freya?
The
first?
Barbara.
Or the other one is a joint?
The other one is co-written by both of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah, so this is, so it's also been interesting to translate a novel written by these 2 writers together and then see which directions they took, on their own.
Can you feel distinctly kind of Vanessa Barbara's voice developing or branching off from the co-written piece? And do you feel more familiar with her work now that you've done 2?
I've read, she has another book that's a really interesting account of when she worked the information booth at the Terminal Tietê in São Paulo, which is the biggest bus terminal in São Paulo. And so it's just this kind of almost anthropological journalistic work where she just writes about, these thousands of people going through the bus station. So I'm more familiar with her work on her own. Emilio has written less, but I'd say in general, she has a more kind of sweet comic style, which you'll get in this piece, and then he has this more kind of darker film noir cinematic feel. And I think what's interesting about the novel they wrote together, The Summer of Shibo, is that you can feel this energy of the collaboration together. And I think, we think of writing as such a solitary endeavor. But something that drew me to this novel was that it was just so kind of, I mean, it was messier in a way, but it ended up being a lot more absurdist and experimental. Whereas I think a lot of contemporary Brazilian fiction takes a more realist turn.
Huh.
So it's something when I heard it, I thought it was really different. So
That's interesting.
yeah. And just one other thing is that, so Verão do Chibo, the Summer of Chibo, is about a group of young boys, written from the perspective of an 8-year-old boy. And then they both independently, without communicating, wrote about old men whose wives are no longer around, at the ends of their lives thinking. And so there are these odd convergences, and I can see little bits of language that they both use that come from the novel they wrote together. So, yeah, so it's
That's really
interesting.
exciting.
Yeah, yeah.